Hello, hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. We are live, WeatherBrains episode 561. It's the pre-show, the most marvelous time of the program where we share a lot of boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and quite often say outrageous things. Brian, share a boring story. Go ahead.
I gave a talk in Tuscaloosa today.
What did you talk about in Tuscaloosa?
What do you think?
Football.
Severe weather and storm spotting. Nah. Nobody wants me to talk about those things. They only ask for things like severe weather and storm spotting. And what's interesting is the lecturer and a professor didn't even show up.
What? Bad. So what class was this?
It's a EMA class, a class in emergency management. Actually, I think it's called hazardous weather or hazardous something or other.
So I spoke down there last week at the university, and they give me a little bag when you're finished speaking, and I thought it was a T-shirt. There was a stinking Amazon tablet in that thing.
Oh my
goodness gracious! I didn't even get a bag.
I mean, this
all your money on James.
I guess
is
so.
Like really nice. I mean, I've not had time to play with it, but it's called an Amazon Fire, which is like a little iPad mini kind of thing here. So I will play with that. I will probably, and I'm very thankful that they gave that to me, but I will probably donate that to a ministry. I do want to just fiddle with it for a minute, and then I'll hand it over right there. I would feel guilty about taking that because that is a very nice device a student could really use, I think, in school. I mean, it's got, it's just like a little iPad mini. I will say this, it's got a lot of Amazon ad messages. Like every time the screen turns on, it's an ad message for Amazon something. But that's okay. I think they're fairly inexpensive. And anyway, so.
Very
but
nice.
You didn't get an Amazon Fire when you were there today.
No. But it was a good group.
They did have a pack of matches, though, James.
It was a good group. They asked lots of questions, so I always like it when the audience asks questions. So what's this up with 100-degree highs in
Isn't that crazy?
the center of the country? Wow, that's just unheard of.
It's the latest they've ever had 100 in Oklahoma. Today it ties the record.
Wow. Glad we're not going to see temperatures that hot.
Oh, Lord. No kidding.
Does look like we may break a record tomorrow.
You think?
I think the record
record's
tomorrow
86.
is only 86, and I think
We got to blow past that.
Yeah, didn't we hit? Did we hit 88 today or 87? What was it? I looked.
87.
Yeah,
Record high tomorrow is 86 set in 1947.
Yeah, and we had 87 today.
And the record high Wednesday is 88 in 1938. So we'll be close to that
may
too.
go down too.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the show Wednesday night.
Yeah. What do we
What in the heck are we doing, James?
I don't know. We got a Wednesday night special, and none of us know why we're there or what we're doing. So
I guess I'll start a Google Doc with their notes, and we'll kind of go from there. I sort of distilled them into.
Are we going to do this like a regular show?
No, I think it's more like us presenting to them. So it's not like going out to the general public. Not to the general public.
That's a disaster.
They want to hear what the great Tuba has to say about social media.
Initiate a hangout like this, or do they need what's the logistics here?
Yeah, I've reached out to Sean Riley because he hasn't responded to me after last week.
He probably saw a few of these episodes and he's just totally abandoned the idea, and he's not going to respond.
If he didn't abandon us after the NWA one, he sure wouldn't abandon us now.
No, again, if I need to open up a hangout, I can do that. I mean, we can do it this way. And
I'll send around some information in the morning as soon as I have it.
If we do it, you might as well put it up on there for the world to see, unless they wanted to be private or something.
No, I agree.
We all wear our heart on our sleeves. We're public here. There are no secrets in this group. We're very transparent.
I took what he wrote and I put it into like 8 points, 8 talking points, So I'll share those with everybody. And as we get more information, the key tenets of responsible social media use. Tips on how to be professional and informative.
Is Rick able to make it? Because he's probably got the best knowledge.
Yeah, Rick is going to be on. I think everybody's going to be on, as a matter of fact.
Okay, because I don't claim to know a lot about social media.
Oh, please!
Oh yeah!
Oh my gosh!
Don't. Well, the lady hates me because I retweet too much. I mean, everybody hates me. So I'm not a social media guy.
Give me a break. 250,000 followers begs to differ.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm approaching 4,000.
I know. I think I've got 7,000 on WX Historian, and I'm like, please, it's just paltry comparatively.
We ought to get Gary Zautowski's. How do you say Gary's last name?
The retired MIC from Mount Holly?
Yeah. He's writing some very interesting tweets about this New York Times piece today. He said he's got all kind of fun tweets going on here. He said it became clear that what the National Weather Service wanted me to say and what I felt I needed to be said were two different things. He's retired now, so
right.
I guess he's like Brian. He can have a little more freedom to talk.
Say whatever he wants to.
Have y'all read that long piece in the New York Times today?
No, I've got it in my inbox to read later.
I tried to.
It's a very long piece, and the key guy in this is Cliff Mass.
Yeah.
And
we know him well.
It's very, very interesting read.
Yeah, but one of the things is nobody ever brings up when the European blows it like it did with Hermine.
Yeah, and I think the other problem is that it kind of discredits the abilities we have in short-term situations like tornadoes and severe storms.
Right.
The successes that the United States Prize have achieved in severe local storm warning, it's just remarkable how good we are understanding the limitations. And I think the whole thing, it boils down to the lack of input. We're still using balloons and twice a day.
Right.
And I think, that's the biggest problem. And they mentioned the data from aircraft, and there was some things in here I didn't really know about
the lack of airborne.
The Tropospheric Airborne Meteorological Data Reporting, or TAMDAR. Apparently the United States government had access to that in 2008, but in 2013, it couldn't afford it, or the budget restraints. They had to cut it out. And it says in this article, the results were staggering. Without that data, forecast accuracy plummeted up. And I don't know how they quantify that.
Yeah.
That's
probably the
very
skill scores of the models.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, and I'd like to talk more about that.
We need to do a special show on that. Let's do a special show Thursday night.
Well, yeah, let's just do one every night this week. Let's see. That video, Bill, you put in there, does that have audio?
It does. It has music, James. I guess it might be a problem from a...
with a Hangout, I can screen share that, but it won't play the music.
I don't think you want the music anyway. That might get us in trouble with... You're probably right. We'll just kind of talk over it. The music is fun. You might play a few seconds of it if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. I thought Alex did a really good job with the video.
Naked woman video, is it?
I hope not.
They goodness, we were doing a song in the night back there in the control room one night, and the producer, Ainsley, Brian,
yes.
Allison, she was always on smockmonkey.com during the whenever I'd go back there. And it's just a sweet little site where you order, clothes for your little girl, your toddler girl. I mean, it's very sweet. So Ainsley doesn't work the night shift anymore, and Candace was back there. And I said, Ainsley spends all of her time on smockmonkey.com during the weather and sports. What do you do back here? And she said, I go to adamandeve.com. So I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I thought it was some sweet little site about children's clothes or something, and it was not exactly what I expected.
No, it's not biblical.
So I should not have shown that site on the Song of the Night stream. It was slightly embarrassing.
What site was it, James?
Don't.
Yeah, Bill's over there trying to go to it right now.
I need to write it down. I missed that when you said it.
Show title. What site was that?
You don't. The first thing that popped up that got on that live stream, I'm thinking, oh, goodness. Oh, please. It's embarrassing to think about it.
I don't know. I don't know where our guest weather brain is. This is not good.
Do we need to invite him? I
invited him, but you need to invite him too. Test went well, so he should be on here.
All right, let's see.
I haven't heard from him or anything. Usually I get these panicked calls, Oh, don't start doing that, James.
Oh, gosh, please don't.
Gosh, this has been a bad day.
It has been
I just did something. I did something I'd never do. I botched the time of a school talk today. I botched it. Here he comes. I botched it by 1 hour. I was supposed to be at this school at 9:30, and for some reason, my brain just was telling me 10:30.
Well, you get to blame it on being old now, you said.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When you're as old as I am, you just blame it on that. But goodness, I run such a tight schedule. It just was. I had a 7 o'clock meeting. 7 a.m., which means I had to get up at 3:30 a.m. to do the weather production. After the 7 o'clock meeting, for some reason, I don't know. I just lost it, and I missed it by an hour, and that threw everything else off. So hopefully we'll get back on track for this show. Hey, Matt, can you hear us?
But you got a cake. They still gave you the cake.
Yeah, I figured they'd shove it in my face for being an hour late.
You should have let them do that, James. That would have been fun.
That would have been good. Hey,
put that on the Buffalo Rock Pepsi Kid cam. You would have had fun with that.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, I can hear you.
Yay.
Okay.
Check on Alex over there. Alex, can you hear?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. The kids always got the technology under control.
Alex, how old are you?
I am 17. I still have to think about that because I just turned 17.
I really got underwear older than this guy. So are you in high school or right now?
Yes, I'm a senior this year, so I'll graduate in May.
You playing baseball?
No.
Why not? It's a great sport.
Our high school's baseball team is not exactly known in the state like our football team.
Well, it's because people like you don't even play. Come on. What's the matter with you? I mean, you look like you're smart. You probably got some speed. I mean,
well, I think if I played, I might hurt that reputation just a little more.
Oh, brother. All right. Aubrey, you are looking good. Can you hear us?
I can't hear her, though.
Aubrey, we don't hear you.
Your lips are moving.
That's why we're checking to see. And once in greetings to our television viewers. It is now 30 minutes after the hour. For those watching on the television side, this is the magical pre-show where we get to see empty chairs and panicked talent diving under the desk trying to get a microphone plugged in.
How about now?
Yes.
Yay.
Bingo. Cool. All right, let's get this thing started here. Because we are on the television. So we're going to record this track. And
we're not 5 minutes late yet.
No, we're only 1 minute late, which is a shock. All right, here we go.
Can our system take it?
I don't know. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 561. This is for October 17th, 2016. The weekly show that's all about weather. We sit around this beautifully polished digital mahogany table and we talk weather. This is James Spann. Thank you for taking the time to watch and or listen. We know that most of you listen, but some of you watch. Some of you watch live, which is always a hoot. But we got the big cast of characters here. Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist. Brian, what's on your mind?
Not much. Had a busy weekend visiting a community south of here to listen to storytelling for a couple of nights and celebrate a birthday, mine.
Now, do you tell those stories or do you just listen to the stories?
I primarily listen, but I tell on occasion.
Okay.
I'm a very amateur storyteller, but I like
Happy birthday, Brian.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't believe I got 146 birthday greetings on Facebook. That's amazing.
I thought you were going to say, I can't believe I'm 146.
That's what I thought too, Kevin.
No, we established that last week. I'm 68.
And you really don't look over 130.
Thank you. Kevin, that's why I always love you, Bella.
Kevin Shelley, the melodious voice, is the chief meteorologist for KFDX in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Where it was
are you in the heat today, or are you on the cool side of the front? Where are you?
92 with a dew point in the mid-60s.
Wow.
Ooh.
And up north, somebody in Kansas hit 100 today.
People are.
Did anybody in Oklahoma hit 100?
Gage, 102.
Okay, so that ties their record for latest 100.
Wow. Yeah, people are agitated at me. I use an old, there's a couple of lines, especially from Dan Satterfield, James, that I use repeatedly. And one of them is when people are giving me static, I say, I'm in marketing and God's in manufacturing. You remember him saying that?
No, say that line one more time, because you might have a different read on it.
Oh, he taught me whenever anybody gives you static, you say, I'm in marketing and God's in manufacturing.
Okay. I've heard I'm in marketing, God's in management, but it's the same thing. Same line.
And I've heard that I'm in marketing and God's in production.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, whatever those work.
They all work.
And since Brian's closer to God's age, his is probably right.
I often talk about Brian looking like Colonel Sanders or Santa Claus. I think he's starting to look like Moses.
There you go.
Charleston Heston.
You just insulted Charlton Heston. There you go.
The one person on this show that doesn't look like Moses is Aubrey Urbanowitz. And I bet you the fall colors are popping up there, aren't they?
Oh, my. We went on a fantastic hike yesterday. I've been tweeting and sharing some of the photos on Facebook. About an hour-and-a-half drive into West Virginia. Seneca Rocks, West Virginia, amazing place. We hiked it, 1,000 feet elevation rise in about a mile and a half. It was steep.
And you hiked it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And some of you guys are on my personal page. We went with my brother, my husband, and editor and photographer from here at the station, and he brought his gear with him and filmed most of it. So then he made a video today of it, so that's on my personal page.
Did you guys take a drone with you on this trip?
No, we didn't take a drone, but when we got to the top, we got to climb on the rocks and stuff, and you have to be really careful because 15 people have died since the 70s.
He was just hoping. That's why he brought the video camera, huh?
Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads, right?
I know. I told him that he wasn't allowed to be on our news.
Somebody brought a drone and flew it over my son's flag football game Saturday, and everybody had a fit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they had a fit. They escorted the guy out.
Wow.
So I didn't know what the rules and regs were on that under the new FAA stuff.
Well, we are missing Nate Johnston and Rick Smith. Rick is out this week. Hopefully Nate will join us in a little bit. But Bill, bring in our guests. Let's start this show.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest panelist is currently a senior high school student who plans on pursuing a degree in meteorology. He wants to be a television meteorologist in a top 10 market, or at least at one of the networks. Those are no small ambitions. Alex Forbes, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
No, wait a minute. I'm going to horn in here. What in the world? So you're limiting all these other incredible markets around the country. You want to be in a top 10. Why?
Well, that's just my overall goal. Of course, I'll have to go through lower markets to get there. But, I mean, if you look at like some of the jobs in the top 10 markets, a lot of the meteorologists there seem like they enjoy their job and they go on, like adventures. Like if you look at Ginger Z on Good Morning America, she's not limited to just meteorology. So I want to do the meteorology, but also have a lot of the fun aspects to it. And I think, being in the top 10 market. So you
want to do showbiz and meteorology then?
Kind of, but mainly focus on the meteorology.
I have to say, you might be ruling out some really good small market stations. I get some fantastic opportunities here.
I'm telling you, you are missing the greatest places to live in the United States, and nothing on those top 10 markets, but you're just a kid. Don't rule out some amazing places to live.
No charge for that free advice, Alex.
Yeah.
So Alex, you're in high school, but you signed up to be a volunteer at the National Weather Association Weather Ready Fest in September. And I have to tell you, a lot of volunteers were surprised when you showed up because, they were expecting someone much older. So, what led you to do that?
Well, I first registered for the conference in June, I think. So we were planning on going up there, and we were going to be up there on Saturday to originally visit my grandparents who live in Virginia Beach. So I heard about the Weather Ready Fest once it was first started being talked about, and then the volunteer list came out. Like, okay, I'll be there that day. May as well help out, and I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you made a really cool video. So James, why don't you run that video for us?
I think it's running right now. Can't play the music and watch the video.
We'd probably be arrested if we played the music, but the music is really cool. So
yeah,
when you go to YouTube,
we would. And it's technically impossible the way Hangouts are set up.
Yeah,
but you can get an idea of the video there.
So talk to us while the video plays, Alex, about some of your favorite memories and impressions of WeatherFest.
I think the coolest part was probably watching kids who, like I was in their shoes a couple of years ago, walking around, just looking at all of the different, booths we had. One thing that really sticks out to me is one kid who met Jim Cantori, and he was just like starstruck. And I think that would have been me like 5 years ago. So I think it's neat for y'all to see kids do that, but then it's also neat for me because that was literally me, just a couple of years ago. And now I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
Well, that's awesome. You were a huge part. You were definitely the most valuable volunteer that day, and I appreciate you doing that video because it is a nice recollection of what was a very crazy, very hairy day with about 3,500 people coming through the Nautica Science Center. It was a huge success, and a lot of that was because of 42 volunteers like you. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Not a problem.
So we're going to talk more with you in detail after we speak to our guest weather brain tonight and after the recorded segments. But you have one job tonight, as they say on ESPN, on game day, Alex, and that's to ask at least one awesome question of our guests tonight. And if the rest of the panel judges it to be worthy, you get James's job. You start Thursday. All right. So you ready for that challenge?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we're glad to have you on the show tonight. But tonight's guest weatherbrain is a senior fellow meteorologist at the Savannah River National Laboratory. He is the 2016 president-elect of the American Meteorological Society. Matt Parker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're sure glad to have you here, Matt. You've got some amazing experience, but, I guess I don't think meteorology when I think the Savannah River Labs. Talk to us for a minute about the lab and what it does.
It's a Department of Energy National Laboratory. It's one of the smaller ones. Our Atmospheric Technologies group has a couple of different missions. Any nuclear facility has to have real-time meteorological monitoring and modeling capabilities in case there's an unplanned release to the environment, both the atmosphere and surface waters. So our group handles all of that sort of thing. We also get involved with a lot of other projects like all national labs do, and our expertise is in long-range transport. And when I say long-range, it could be hundreds or even thousands of miles. We do some work in trace gas measurements. We have a tall tower where we have meteorological equipment on a television transmitter, and the NOAA Global Monitoring Division has their equipment there as well for monitoring CO2, CO, and a bunch of other trace gases. We have what's called an Ameriflux site in one of the forests at Savannah River to monitor CO2 uptake in trees. And more recently, we've been involved in things such as understanding the impact of clouds on solar energy and working with utilities on that particular issue, and even looking at things like ecological forecasting, where things that make us sick in the environment actually have a pretty good correlation with weather patterns. And that's probably what I would consider to be kind of a growth area, a new area of endeavor, and using the expertise at our lab and other labs within the government, we're starting to look at those sorts of things. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's a whole lot of stuff that I didn't even know about. So thanks for sharing that. You know, when I think nuclear and incidents and things, I think Fukushima, of course. So talk about the scope of that disaster and the meteorology around it, and what happened there, and what that's meant to nuclear power.
Yeah, Fukushima is very interesting. It's interesting because when something happens in the nuclear industry, it affects everybody, and Fukushima in particular. I mean, if you think about the assets of the United States, we've got the Navy over there, we've got corporations, and there's a lot of us Americans, let alone the Japanese. So in that particular incident, they build these nuclear reactors with the so-called design basis criteria, and in this case, the earthquake surpassed that, but it did not damage any of the reactors. What they did was shut down, and everything was okay at that point. But of course, the Achilles heel for the plants at Fukushima were the nuclear power backup generators. They're not when the reactors go down, you need backup power, shore power, just to operate all the electrical work, what have you. The tsunami took those out, and when that happened, then they had problems. But I would also say, and I've given talks on this before, as severe as it was, the engineering, as robust as it is, really saved the environment. Yes, there were some limited releases. There's no argument there, but it could have been a heck of a lot worse. What our group did was helped with the long-term, long-range transport all the way from Japan to the United States. There was a big question about, what the impacts were going to be in the rest of the world. The nuclear power plants in this country have monitoring equipment that actually can measure the fallout. And the models and the data that were collected actually corresponded well. And of course, there was no threat this far away. What does it mean to the industry? It's a good question. Generally speaking, the industry has been very safe. I mean, it's got a track record for many decades. And I think really that's not as much of an issue as the cost of nuclear energy, as opposed to, let's say, natural gas, which has come down in price, and it's a little cheaper and easier on the regulation side, and probably just from an environmental support side from the public to build a gas-fired generator system at a power plant as opposed to an expensive nuclear power plant. But the good thing about nuclear power too, though, is that it's clean. Of course, it has waste, but you know where the waste is and you can manage it. You're not releasing anything into the atmosphere like CO2 from a coal or gas-fired plant. So that's kind of a long-winded answer.
No, that's a great answer. So what is the future of new nuclear generators in the United States and in other countries around the world?
Well, other countries around the world, it depends. Some have really embraced it. If you look at Japan or France, they're kind of hemmed in by their natural resources, where the United States is very big. We have a lot of natural resources, so we have options, whereas other places may not. Again, I think it comes down to the cost. I think eventually, especially if renewable energy pushes the carbon-based fuels out the door. Right now I think nuclear is about 20% of power generation on our grid, and that's nice to have. Our grid was built for power plants that come up and run at 100%, where you get the renewables, which are much more cyclical, and solar, or in the wind-based. It's not always windy, and you have to deal with those issues. In fact, the grid modernization right now, that's a huge issue. And I mentioned before that we're working on the solar energy in the Southeast and our utilities here, in trying to understand and manage what this potential resource is for this part of the country. But I think there's a lot of positive in that, and nuclear, I think, is going to be a part of our future electrical generation in this country for some time to come.
Are they still issuing licenses for new plants at this point?
They will, but nobody's pursuing them. And they're building 2 new plants at Plant Vogtle in Georgia, which is right across from the Savannah River site, and VC Summer, which is closer to Columbia, South Carolina. And that's where all the action is right now. The rest of the applications, I think, are kind of put on hold, but that's more due to the cost.
So it's just not as cost feasible to do nuclear.
Not right now, when the fracking and the bottom kind of fell out in the price of natural gas. That changed everything. And who knew? Things change.
So what's your take on fracking and earthquakes and obviously what's happening in places like Oklahoma, man?
Well, it's probably a little bit beyond my expertise. It certainly seems like there's a relationship there.
I just thought I would keep touching till I found the bottom of the pool. So good. All right. That's good.
I appreciate that.
So you say that, the AMS has always been a huge part of your career, and obviously you've done a lot of things, but now you'll be the president next year. Matt, so talk to us about the AMS and what it means to you.
Man, it's just been an amazing ride. I don't think you ever think that you could attain the AMS president status. I think it's been a lot of work. I'm the guy that kind of worked his way up from the bottom. Not the guy that runs a large corporation or runs a National Weather Service or a big academic department. But I think that just goes to show there's a place for all of us. And I think that reflects the society itself. That is basically a third from the government, a third from the academic, and a third from the commercial sector. And a lot of us are players. A lot of us care about our enterprise and are working hard to, ensure that we do the best job that we can. You all understand that, and I think we all have that in common, and that's pretty exciting, definitely.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you see to our weather enterprise coming up in the next couple of decades?
Wow. Where to start? I think technology. Just the fact that we're doing this talk, with technology that didn't exist, say 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Brian now, and I could wish him happy birthday, and I don't even know the guy, and it's awesome. And by the way, I would never have guessed 68. You look more like 48. So
thank you. You're now in my will. So
not good. So technology. My theme for the 2018 annual meeting for the AMS is communications based. I think the way we communicate with each other across sectors, across generations, across anything you can imagine, demographics, and all these things are changing. They're changing rapidly, and there's a lot of data out there. There's going to be more. And for example, with GOES-R and some of the JPSS satellites, improved radar, you know all this stuff, but it's pushing our ability to keep up. And I think that's one of the things, I guess you would say, keeps me up at night, that we, as an enterprise can keep doing the job that we've been doing. We strive to do better, but I think we're really being pushed, and it's a challenge. And it's really good to see somebody like Alex at a young age engage with us. When I was that age, I was writing letters to the National Weather Service office, and that's important, to begin the process early on for us to mentor, which I do a lot of and I really enjoy. So Alex, welcome aboard. It's great to have you. I'm just amazed at your opening comments. Very mature for your age.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo those comments 100%, Matt. Thank you for saying that. Alex is a real testament to what you can do if you're a young person, if you just take the initiative.
Absolutely.
So, you just gone through Hurricane Matthew swinging by pretty close to where you were, and a lot of the problem with the hurricane was, coming with one message. So, and that ties well into what you were just talking about, Matt. Talk about, how communication worked or failed with Hurricane Matthew.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. The people in Florida were kind of beating us up because we had this Category 4 hurricane off the coast by 20 miles. And they're saying, well, why can't you do a better job? And I think those of us in the know realize that the models did a pretty doggone good job. The problem is the uncertainty. And, how do you, what's an acceptable risk with a storm like that? Are you going to believe the model that says, hey, the storm's probably going to stay offshore? Of course not. That's crazy. But then you go up the coast and you look at Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina and see all the damage when the storm was much weaker. and when it rained itself out. I mean, these things have so many different types of threats. And, that's part of our message too. It has to be kind of a composite of what humanity's facing. And it's a tough challenge. You've always got, and James talks about this, there's always got a certain part of the population that won't listen to you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And then you have the state of South Carolina, and Nikki Haley made a decision. Hey, we're going to evacuate. We're moving people out of harm's way, and the state of Georgia as well. So I think those are pluses. It's tough to always get it right. And I think, as human beings, that's what we're faced with. And sure, we want zero loss of life, but I don't know if it's always going to be possible.
Yeah, at some point.
Let me just interject this, Bill, while we're talking here. Matt, I don't know if you've had a chance to see this article in the New York Times today. Does that look familiar to you?
No, I have not seen that one.
Okay. Well, then we're not going to make a comment on it. But this came in. This is my pick of the week. But there is a fairly lengthy article today in the New York Times Magazine, and the headline is "Why Isn't the United States better at predicting extreme weather?" And then it says hurricanes like Matthew have laid bare the dirty secret of the National Weather Service. Its technologies and methods are woefully behind the times. So if nothing else, do you agree or disagree with that statement, Matt?
Well, of course I don't agree with it. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I think that's part of the problem that we're faced with. Look at last year with the heavy rain event in South Carolina, where we, very accurately predicted 2 feet of rain in Charleston, in that area. And sure enough, that's what happened. And, the list goes on and on with Katrina. But there's the social aspect and expectations of how well we can do, pushing the limits of science, our models and the grid spacing, the data ingestion. We know that the Europeans do that a little bit differently, the data assimilation. These are all factors. Thankfully, it's not usually as much of a computer resources problem as it used to be. Sometimes I just wonder if we're pushing the limits of what we can do today technologically, but also through the media. If it's a matter of the uncertainty that we're missing, not assessing the threat. And I'm frustrated because I have a lot of friends who are in the broadcast side, and I know how hard they work, just like all of you do. And that frustration has to lead to some self-examination, which I think we do pretty well. But we also have to remember the forest of the trees. And when we see an article like this kind of bashing us, you got to take the high road. It's not always, it's easy to complain. It's hard to do what we do to make things work all the time, reliably and responsibly. And, our profession makes a judgment call. Every day we make forecasts. There are a couple other professions that do that, economics, but it's not, let's say, like engineering, where you're building a bridge and you say, well, the load is going to be, X number of pounds. Let's multiply that by, 3 or 4 to get our safety measure up. We don't have that capability to do. And I think that's where we kind of lose our focus sometimes. We get criticized for the showmanship side of media, that we're trying to hype things too much, and yet we're faced with, hey, this is a real problem. We're trying to get people out of harm's way, and you're kind of getting beat up no matter what you do.
And I think that this article is based on synoptic scale forecasting. I wish that it would have taken a look at the success in some of the mesoscale forecasting and storm scale forecasting. And I've said this all along. I don't think the national media understands the successes we're having in the center of the country, because the national media is typically based in New York City or Los Angeles, where they don't deal on a regular basis with severe storms and tornadoes. And the successes that have been achieved on the storm scale, in my opinion, are remarkable. This is hard. This is challenging. and you look at a day like April 27, 2011, when you had 62 tornadoes in one state, every one of them, the warning was excellent. Now, the death toll was outrageous because of maybe our lack of understanding of social science and human behavior. But they chose not to look at that. And they probably don't even think about that. I don't even know if they know that event ever existed. They're looking at these hurricanes that affect the East Coast because it affects their media markets. And again, it was like a Hurricane Floyd in 1999, and we're not that good. And I think there was uncertainty communicated by most. If the track is 50 miles one way or the other, the impact's going to be huge. But I do think there's some good points in there. And Matt, the one thing that I found was interesting was the part where they discussed the input of the models. And I've said all along, in my opinion, that's our biggest problem. But I didn't know this. This is the first time I've seen this. In the late 1990s, the Tropospheric Airborne Meteorological Data Reporting, or TAMDAR set, was developed with the airlines. And the Weather Service started buying the data in 2008. And then in 2013, there was an end to the data flow because of budget constraints. And it says in this article, without it, forecast accuracy plummeted up to 50%. I didn't know that. That's a very interesting statistic to me. Have you heard of that, Mark? Or Matt, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure that that's true. Aren't we still collecting TAMDAR data?
The data set's there, but according to this article, just a limited amount of that now is getting into the data that goes into the model input.
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, we need to dig into that. That's we'll probably do a whole show on that article sometime.
I would argue that 50% is a little bit over the top.
Yeah, how do you quantify that?
Yeah, I mean looking at the model outputs, I haven't seen that kind of. I mean, that's like saying an 85 forecast is going to be down to like 75, and it's like we're not missing the GFS MOS values are not missing the forecast highs and lows by those kind of values.
One thing that I've always felt about the broadcast side as opposed to the forecasting I've done in my profession, on my job. If somebody calls me and says, Matt, I need a forecast, and they'll say, well, what's it going to be like on Wednesday or Thursday, Friday, whatever. And I'll say, whoa, what do you need to know? And they'll say, well, we're moving some material. We can't have wind speeds over 10 miles an hour for 4 hours. Okay, that means I can look at the forecast. I can look at the synoptic pattern. I can pick out times that may meet that. And it could be in the middle of the night, or it might not happen at all. But my point is, the more I know about what the forecaster or the person requesting the forecast needs, the better job I can do. Now, from the broadcast perspective, it's a shotgun forecast. It's going to everybody. And that part is a challenge. So, for example, if a hurricane's threatening, you've got wind problems, you've got water, surge. These are all bad things. But depending on what, like, for example, the power company may care about some things that other, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's why we have a good commercial sector. But what they're allowed to do, I think, is hone in and provide a value-added forecast. I think it's a challenge when we're on broadcast television and given the shotgun forecast, because everybody's listening, but they're listening for something different that they may not be hearing, or they may not interpret what we're saying to them really closely to their needs. And so I think once that situation kind of manifests itself, then we're going to have problems, because people are going to complain because you're not going to be on target for everybody, if that makes sense.
Well, it seemed to me, Matt, and I have an interest because we have hotels in Jacksonville Beach. So we were forecasting 7 days out that this was a threat, and 5 days out that it was an increasing threat, and 3 days out we're taking action. And so I watched the local media very closely. I watched the local emergency management very closely. And, of course, then I'm monitoring the Weather Channel and the National Weather Service, and we're issuing our own forecasts for these two hotels. And we knew that neither one of them would have a surge problem. One's 1 mile from the beach, one was 5 miles, but one was on one side of the intracoastal and could be cut off. That's one problem. The other would not have that issue. They would have wind problems based on the eye wall. But it seemed to me that by early Thursday, the emergency management shifted to a deterministic idea that this was going to be a worst case scenario. And there are a lot of people now who say, I want to evacuate next time. So how much of it is like Marshall said on Weather Geeks yesterday? Sometimes we just need to thank our lucky stars and say, thank God, the hurricane wasn't as bad as we thought, and we lucked out. And how much of it is, maybe a little overzealousness on the part of emergency management or weather forecasters in not communicating that uncertainty clearly enough. James said, they did communicate it, but the screaming message coming out of locally in Duval County at least was, this is going to be a terrible situation. It's going to be uninhabitable. It's going to be the end of the world. And we made our decisions based on the worst case scenario, even though it turned out to be really closer to the original forecast that we had, which meant that we probably could have stayed in the hotel, but we had to close it for 2 days, couldn't be there to monitor damage, couldn't even have a person in the hotel. The police basically threatened the general manager and said, you can't be here. And so, it wasn't an optimal situation. So have we gone too far? In trying to produce a deterministic forecast, and are we still not producing enough uncertainty information?
Well, but, I think the governor usually makes the call. So the governor is advised, and the governor knows, because the emergency managers know this, how long it takes to evacuate barrier islands. So what do you have, a day or two? And you see a hurricane, it's coming. The models are telling us that. Is it going to be, 50 miles this way or that? You don't have the luxury of sitting back and say, well, it's going to be 20 miles offshore. We're going to just sit tight. You just can't. I don't think you could do that responsibly. And if people get upset about it, so be it. It's the level of risk. And I think the governors know with, barrier islands or vulnerable populations or parts of the population, you got to get them out of harm's way. There's just way too much threat. The threat is not zero, the threat was really high. And I think the right call was made. Sometimes you should look back and say, well, we were lucky. And haven't a lot of people actually said that? Haven't a lot of people said, hey, I would rather get out of harm's way and then go back home and everything's peachy keen and I'm happy, rather than riding out something that might kill you. I mean, I don't think, sometimes you hear the squeaky wheel all the time and you don't hear all the positive stories too.
So Kevin, you had a question, and while we've got you here, I want to make sure you get to ask it. Maybe. Maybe
Kevin
that's
has fallen asleep.
Yeah, it finally happened. So his question, Matt, was basically, is there anything that the AMS can do about the media overhyping big storm?
You tell me. I mean,
you look like Kevin there for a second, Matt.
Look, I mean, if somebody goes through the CBM process, we're basically saying, look, or the NWA, we're backing up these people that have gone the extra mile and made the grade amongst their peers. And I really think that's the achievement that the public likes to see and expects from our people on television. And when they have that backing, they do the right thing. And if they don't, and just like, I'm a CCM, a certified consulting meteorologist, if I don't do my job well, it is possible that someone can go back to the AMS and say, Parker screwed up. They examine what happened, and if I get decertified, that's my livelihood. I don't want that to happen. And I believe that's the same for, our professionals that are certified. And I think that the NWA and the AMS have a huge role in backing up our professionals, people that have made the grade, and we feel confident that they're going to do their jobs to the best of their abilities.
I don't think the problem is with the CBMs or professionals on the science side. It's the journalists. What's this guy on Fox that said you're going to die and your children are going to die? And I mean, to me, that was one of the biggest problems. The two things I saw, and all this hyperbole, we talked about this last week. I don't even want to talk about these political loons, the right wing and the left wing. The Drudge Report said it's a scam, and that's obvious insanity. But you had some credible journalists that were just saying some things that are pretty outrageous, and I think he might want to question doing that the next time, because that just didn't come out right. I mean, he might have meant something, but it didn't work. And the question I still, in my mind, and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback this whole thing, but do you pull out the Katrina doomsday statement for a storm like that? And I don't know what the right answer is, because I am not of the culture. I am not there. It's not my market. I don't know what the right answer is, but you hear from the Weather Service that parts of the Florida coast will not be inhabitable for weeks. And it's the classic Robert Ricks doomsday statement. So, and again, I don't know, but I do think that one of the problems we have is that the media hypes up everything. Every time it rains, every time there's thunder, every time there's lightning, it's a monster storm with 80 million in the path. And the problem is when you do have a big problem like Matthew, that nobody pays attention. But I think it all goes back to the social science side, because I have no training, Matt. I don't know about you. I have zero training in social science and human behavior, and that's where I'm lacking.
Is there a question there?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, maybe you've had some experience or training. I don't.
On the social side?
Yeah.
Not formally, other than minoring in speech and communications in my undergraduate days.
Well, there you go. You got more than me.
So put it on a language most of our folks can really understand. Should the NC State football game have been played or not in Raleigh on Saturday?
Obviously, yes, because we won. That's where that's a good question. A lot of people have asked that, and there was no lightning. There was a heck of a lot of rain. There was flooding afterwards in Raleigh. It was a mess. There were a lot of games played in the ACC that day. Other games were canceled in different parts of the country, I think in Florida and LSU. It's complicated, and I don't think we always make the right decision. And I think the NC State game, that's probably one that you could question and, maybe examine. And, I'm also kind of wondering, we haven't gone through a 2004 and 2005 really active tropical season for quite some time. Maybe we're just out of practice. That may not be a good excuse, but it may be, some of the things we're talking about are symptomatic of that. And we just have to strive to do better next time.
Now, you raised a couple of interesting points I wanted you to touch on a little further, and that's the uptake of CO2 by trees. I know that's being studied in a lot of places, including very near to where we are here in Alabama. So talk about that and the importance of that research. And is that a significant part of where the CO2 in the atmosphere is going?
Yeah, absolutely. The biosphere really has a lot of uptake in North America. In some years, I think if we have a really good growing season, plenty of water, even the Southeast can just about offset the rest of the continent and create a sink for the CO2 that we produce. So, it's a massive amount of uptake in the biota in this part of the country, the Southeast. It's amazing. We live here. We know how things grow like crazy. It's remarkable. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing no matter the state of the atmosphere. It's natural and the way things have been for a long time. The forests at Savannah River are managed. When the site was built by the Department of Energy in the early 50s, it was basically farmland, and then where they built the nuclear facilities, but it's 300 square miles, and the facilities only cover a very small portion. So you've got this opportunity to manage these forests, and the U.S. Forest Service does that on behalf of the Department of Energy. And these trees grow like weeds, longleaf pine, and they're harvested, and, pulpwood or any other application you could imagine. So, the question is, how do you do that? How do you do it well? How do you ensure that the carbon that comes out of the ground is captured? When you think about all the burning of coal and oil and other things that come out of the ground, natural gas, That's where it gets really challenging. CO2 has a long residence time in the atmosphere, could be over 1,000 years. It's tricky, and I think that one particular aspect, how you could use managed forests for managing CO2 uptake, is very intriguing, and so that's why this Ameriflux site is here, and offers a nice research plot to study this very thing. There's a lot of ways to capture CO2. None of them, I don't think, are particularly easy. And you would love to have the so-called clean coal, but the scrubbing takes about as much energy as you produce from burning the coal, so that's a real challenge. There's probably nanotechnology and other things that we're developing as humans that have some real promise in the future. A lot of people are studying this. A lot of people care. But even with the COP21 in Paris, the agreement, CO2 doesn't know any boundaries. It's all over the earth. It's ubiquitous. Even understanding where it's coming from, where it's going, is not as easy as you might think. And there's a lot of technological challenges, just in that particular area itself. I mean, think about it. Whether it's Birmingham or Augusta, Georgia, where I live, I mean, we all have power plants that support the power grid. They're all emitting CO2 or something in the atmosphere, and they're all over the world. And cutting back, we're talking just huge amounts of CO2, and cutting back is, in principle, it's easy to say, but it's kind of in practice hard to do, in terms of really doing the budgeting and the accounting and really understanding what's going into the atmosphere and what causes change and what impact that has on warming and when it occurs. I think we do clearly know that we've impacted the environment. The challenges are with uncertainty and I think with mitigation as we move forward. And there's a lot of people that feel strongly about both sides of that issue, and it's become politicized, as we all know, and it's a real challenge. Now, the AMS is governed through its council, and we issue statements. We have a statement on climate change and many other topics. So, that's available for folks to look at if they feel so inclined.
So, Matt, you spoke about ecological forecasting and the things that make us sick. Expand on that. What did you mean by that?
Well, I'll take you for an example. The hospitality industry in coastal areas. Let's say there's a heat wave and the water gets warm and there's some sort of algal bloom or something in the water that causes people that are swimming to get sick. And word gets out, hey, don't go to the beach, you're going to get sick. Well, that would be really detrimental to the trade and the business, let alone the people that are getting sick. So if the Earth continues to warm as is expected, the question is, are these events going to become more frequent? Where are they going to occur? And can we forecast them? Can we keep people out of harm's way? And we're working with the University of Georgia on that, and we're kind of early on in the studies, but there's probably some very interesting relationships between the constituents, the germs, the bacteria that cause us to get ill, and the weather, and how we kind of communicate that information, let's say through social media, and the crossing between the physical modeling and kind of the social modeling, much like in the weather forecasting that we talked about, the severe weather and hurricanes. I see a lot of similarities with that aspect in the ecological forecasting. So, you've got the municipal water intakes, where we're all getting our water from. You don't want those jeopardized. You don't want them jeopardized if a hurricane comes through and breaches the treatment plants due to a surge or some sort of river flooding or power outage. I mean, there's a lot of threats there for our critical infrastructure that could have impacts on the quality of water that we consume. And We don't want to have massive outbreaks of sickness. But there's other things that are not related. You know, the way foods are handled, a shipment of food gets too warm or too cold or whatever it may be, and it causes spoilage. You know, that's an issue too. It's not necessarily directly related to weather, but it might be. And those are the kinds of things we're looking at. And, you know, where you are, the National Water Center, they've got this new national water model. I think that has a huge role to play in that particular area, because water is what we're talking about. So it's not only in the continent, in the coastal areas, but I mean, it's basically everywhere. So it's pretty exciting, and you know, I'm really looking forward to getting into that a little bit more. As are, I think, the Weather Service, NOAA. You know, they have a system where they're looking at the Gulf of Mexico already, and Lake Erie, which has had some problems with water intake and algal blooms. And so I think you'll see and hear more about that in the coming years.
Yeah, if you've ever been around one of those algal blooms when you're at the beach, boy, it has an impact for sure. You're exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've got Gary. Well, we've got the National Water Model scheduled for December 5th, so I'm really looking forward to that discussion.
Yeah,
we've got the gentleman who was really behind that, and I'm really looking forward to that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I noticed looking at your CV, Matt, that there was a lot of emphasis on weather entrepreneurship in the past. There, talk about, you know, how you communicate that, because I think that's very important to understand as we go forward, the role that plays in our enterprise.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, early in my career, I actually planned 3 different short courses that were held at AMS annual meetings on weather entrepreneurialism, and I've just had a personal interest in that. I consider even the job that I do now, where I'm looking like ecological forecasting or the solar energy, you know, talking to people, figuring out what their problems are and trying to come up with solutions. It's very entrepreneurial in terms of, you know, writing the right proposals and all that. But then we have the true commercial sector where, you know, there's a whole host of companies out there that do that very thing. Back in the late 90s, the AMS did a study on our demographics, and it all pointed to growth in the commercial sector. And I'd say since that time, it's definitely been true. In the early days of the AMS in our profession, it's, you know, highly centric around government and academia. But, you know, in the last, you know, 20 years, the growth in the commercial sector has been remarkable. So, you know, again, with technology and knowledge, you could run your own business. And why not do it in weather? I think there's plenty of applications out there, plenty of need. And I've always just had a personal interest in it. And, you know, that was kind of my background. I like to read books about it. It just always fascinates me.
So Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot now. You had one job tonight.
Okay,
you get credit for the beautiful video, but now you have to ask your question.
All right, so my question pertains to broadcast meteorology and the AMS seal, since you're going to be becoming president soon. I feel like in the public, so today I'm still technically like in the public. I'm not part of any broadcast meteorology entity. And I, as a weather enthusiast, can't even name all of our AMS certified meteorologists in Atlanta. So what could possibly be done to educate the public more on who has that certification from either the AMS or NWA, and drive home the fact that, you know, they took that extra step to, you know, forecast better?
That's a great question. I think most of the broadcast meteorologists show the symbol on their television screen, the monitor, NWA, AMS seal.
Yeah,
I guess
two of our 4 here do.
I guess what you're saying is that may not be enough. And that's a great question. You know, I may not be the best person to answer it, but I do think it's a marketing issue. And I think for most television stations, they want that visibility. They want to demonstrate that their professional meteorologists have gone the extra mile, that they're certified, that they provide a message that the public, that the audience can listen to and believe. You know, that gets into the social media too. You know, there's a lot of talk about the problems of again, with technology, anybody making a 384-hour forecast for snow in Birmingham, Alabama. These sorts of things. And I think the answer is we take the high road. I'm just not a specialist in marketing in terms of the, I don't know if anybody from the broadcast side wants to take a stab at that, but probably be a little bit better than me for answering that. But it's a great question. And I appreciate that question.
Alex, that is a great question. And another NWA member sort of posed the same question to me today. And so I'll ask James and Kevin, since we've got him here for a second. It seems like news directors put a lot less emphasis on that seal than they used to. Is that true or not?
I think it depends on your length in a market. If you've been in a market for a long time and if you're established, I don't know if it's that important. If the station is hiring a new meteorologist that's coming in from away and they're going to move in, I think it's important there because a CBM establishes some instant credibility, or at least it should. But I think for people that have been in the market for a long, long time, and you get to the Birmingham and in Atlanta and Nashville, and people tend to stay for a long time. They're pretty good markets where it's a nice place to live. So, but I do think in this ocean of insanity that we're in with this on the social media and on the internet, it might not be a bad idea. In fact, I don't know if you guys noticed in the last 3 days in the AMS seal on some of the videos I'm doing online, just to distinguish the fact that, who knows who's watching this, but this is not Joe Bob's Weather Center, some 15-year-old kid in his basement. This is somebody that has the qualifications to be doing this. Not that everything I'm saying is right.
In his basement doing it.
Yeah, I'm just an old guy in my basement. But no, I think, and some people have said, maybe we should start putting the CBM in our, pictures that are on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. And I think that's something we probably should consider, maybe not necessarily for the television side, but, everything else we do, because most of our time is not spent on television. Most of our time is spent, here doing digital stuff like this.
So, right. So Kevin, you have it, or Kevin's not here now. So Alex, that was a really good question. So James, thanks for your service for 37 years. You don't need to come in Thursday.
Am I done?
Yeah, you're done. Alex is taking over Thursday morning. So clean out your desk Wednesday night.
Hang on. We're not going to let this guy get off the hook. So Alex, you say you won't do broadcast. Why? Yes. Nobody your age watches this. They think this is a bad life skit. Nobody. Why in the world would everybody in the world gets weather right here?
Yes. So I've always been interested in I was told when I was 2, I sat in my high chair and watched the Weather Channel. So it's always been with me. I enjoy being the communicator part, or like being in the communications part, because I have a passion for somewhat of marketing and then a passion for meteorology, and mixing those two, you kind of get broadcast meteorology out of it. But at the same time, I feel like there are so many different opportunities that a broadcast meteorologist can do that haven't been done yet.
Like what?
I think, Facebook Live,
everybody does Facebook Live. Everybody does Facebook Live.
So if we take that like the extra mile and make Facebook Live unique in a way to meteorology that is on a regular basis that somebody can watch right here on their phone on a set schedule, that would be huge, as opposed to having. So
let's say you're doing Facebook Live. What would you say and how would you say it?
I wouldn't focus so much on what's going on right now. I would focus on what's going to happen, and I would do it in about 30 seconds or less, so that it's quick, to the point, and there's no difference between somebody watching a video of me telling them what's going to happen and them, flipping through their app and getting that same information.
Okay, what you need to do is do that 30-second bit and send it to us. We'd love to see that. And I don't mean it in a negative way. I'm just telling you, you are entering a dying business model. And if you think you're going to make money like we've been making since 1970 and 80 and 90 and 2000, it's gone. It's dead. You got to build a new model. And I'm very optimistic. I think the new model is going to be great, but you can't build your career based on this old model. It's dead.
Yeah, my dad has jokingly told me before, this is like becoming a typewriter engineer.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the horse and buggy business, and nobody is going to stay up and watch some blow dried boob on television, tell them what the weather's going to do when they've got this information anytime they need it. And you've got to figure out something that's relevant, something that's interesting to not only these older people that are watching these legacy products, but to people your age. And trust me, you might be the only guy your age that probably, I bet you don't. When's the last time you watched a local TV weather segment?
6 o'clock tonight.
You're weird, man. This guy's weird. You need to get a life. You ought to be in the convertible scouting babes.
He's not weird. He's rare.
I've grown up with my dad having the news on every night at 6 o'clock. We had Glenn Burns from WSB telling me the forecast. I can tell you it's at 6:31 every single night. So I don't know. That's just what I'm used to. And I think, it depends on how you've grown up. But I think, like when I go to college next year, I have no plans on not watching the news. I've always, grown up watching the news. I can tell you who's on in the mornings, who's on in the evenings, not just meteorologists, but also the news anchors. For all 4 stations here in Atlanta. I mean, I do recognize that, people say that this is a dying business, but at the same time, it can be revitalized in so many different ways.
No, I didn't say it was a dying business. I said it's a dying business model. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Yes. But I mean, I have thought about that a lot. And, like maybe, like I've looked at the Weather Channel, how they've been doing a lot of videos on their app that, Ari Silvasari does. And that, if you mix that with what people do on TV now, so make videos like Ari's hyper local. So say Metro Atlanta, the northern part of Metro Atlanta where I live, you can get people my age watching that because they can establish the connection of, hey, that guy is right, as opposed to the weather app that just lied to me 15 minutes ago. Because I can tell you from my experience at school, especially my age group, is, somebody says, hey, Alex, you were right yesterday. The Weather Channel lied to me. And then they'll come to me 4 days later and ask, is school going to be closed due to snow? And I'm going to say no and upset them. So
how do you monetize that? So again, here's the other problem. Right. All these products are great, but at some point you're going to be married with 2.5 kids and a wife. And, making $50 on Google AdSense money a month is a good way to starvation.
I haven't looked too much into how to monetize it, but I think if you take – I have full faith in the sales department at any news station because they run the business. From what I've heard from our meteorologists here in Atlanta, they make all the decisions at the station. But, I mean, like Facebook Live, it could be something as simple as – throwing somebody's logo up in the background.
But the terms of service don't allow that.
Oh, on Facebook?
Yes.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, so you got to deal with these. If Kevin was here, his head would explode because we have sold out to Facebook and all these platforms that we don't control. We can't put ad messages on there. I mean, we've totally lost that. But no, and again, look, I'm afraid I'm going to sound like Chuck Doswell here.
Going to sound like?
I was going to say you're picking up the band, carrying it well.
What's so bad? That poor young lady in Norman at the National Weather Center. We were live and had that big crowd. This poor young woman, Chuck and I just ripped into her with the same stuff. And I didn't even know this, Brian. This young lady from Valparaiso that interned with us this summer. She was the one that we were.
Yeah.
She didn't have the nerve to tell me that it was her because I totally forgot her name. And as she was leaving, said, by the way, you're the guy that ripped into me. But it will make, and she said, look, it made me tough. It made me determined. It made me motivated. And if you love this and if this is your passion, you're going to be fine. I never intended on making a dime doing this. I just love weather. And you follow your passion in life and everything will work out. But having said that, we got to take a break here. Mr. Peters, you've had a long weekend. You've been out at the Liars Festival.
Not liars, storytelling. Good gosh.
Storytelling. So no WeatherBrains 101, but we've got Tony Rice in the Astronomy Report. We'll come back with the Weather Roundup, the picks of the week, and much more. Even the email inbox segment as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
This past weekend, we were treated to some beautiful views of the rising moon, thanks to clear to partly cloudy skies across much of the country. That moon looked just a little bit bigger this weekend because, just a bit before midnight UTC on Saturday, the moon reached perigee, or the closest point in its orbit to Earth. This occurred about 19 hours after the moon was at its fullest, so we get supermoon. Let's put some numbers around just how super that supermoon is, though. How large an object appears to us in the sky is measured in degrees, minutes, and seconds of apparent diameter. Horizon to horizon is 180. The moon is the largest object in the night sky, averaging about 30 arc minutes in diameter. So, the difference between the apparent diameter between perigee and apogee of the moon is 4¼ arc minutes. That's less than 7/100ths of a degree. Stretch pinky held up against the night sky is about wider than the difference in diameter between the full moon at perigee and at apogee. You can't even use your French manicure to measure that. Next super moonrise, remember that perceived bigness of the moon is coming more from your eyes comparing it to familiar objects on the horizon than the 30,000 miles or so closer it is than the mini-moon, which is a full moon at apogee. Elsewhere in the sky, the Orionid meteor shower peaks this Friday as Earth passes through the various trails of debris left by Halley's Comet. Known for being very fast, they're also usually pretty faint. Expect about 20 per hour under ideal conditions. Mark your calendar for the Geminids, the next major meteor shower. This is a brief one. Most meteor showers last a couple of weeks. Ramp up slowly over a couple of weeks, but this one lasts only December 7th to December 17th and peaks on the 13th. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, the weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink, by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
We are doing this show on October 17th, and before we get into the Weather Roundup, our guest Matt's got to go watch the Indians play. Matt, you're a Cleveland guy, right?
I was born in Cleveland, so you kind of get that blood going.
Yeah, no. My pal is Francona. He's a great guy,
and we're still in it. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And do you know the score right now, Matt?
No, I do not.
All right, I won't tell you then.
Okay. Tell you. So we're going to let you go, but Matt, if somebody wants to if you got a Twitter feed, what's the way where people get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah, at Matt Parker CCM. You could follow me on Twitter. That would be great.
Awesome.
And you're so inclined,
very excited about using it.
Communicate. Or my email, matt.parker@srnl.doe.gov. That works too. But thanks for having me.
January 1, is that when you take over, or is it after the annual meeting?
During the annual meeting. Yeah, and for the record, I am going to the NWA annual meeting in 2017 in Orange, California. I've been invited. I'm looking forward to it. And I think I'll have a surprise for you all at that meeting. So,
WeatherBrains.
I have to wait a whole year now. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Not quite a whole year.
No, but I'm very excited about Matt's year as president. I think it's going to be a great year, and we could do probably 3 shows with Matt here because anyway, it's great.
Let's
so Matt, thanks for your
thanks for my pleasure. This has been great. Thank you so much.
And you go, you check out the Indians Blue Jays game, and you turn. We'll tell the world the score here. So hang up, and then we'll say the score. We'll see you, Matt. Yeah, all right. So the Indians are leading 4-2, bottom of the seventh.
Exactly.
I have it on over here. No, Francona's a great guy. I love Terry Francona, and I love the Cubs. You know, we went to Wrigley this year. It was our random baseball trip. So it would be fun to have the Cubs and the Indians play in the World Series, but who knows? We'll see. This is not baseball brains. This is weather brains. And who made Kevin mad? I've never known Kevin to hang up on us in the middle of the show.
He just hung up,
I guess. And before we do the weather roundup, I see Aubrey, and I just have we're going to interrupt the weather roundup because we just might have some email to read here.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks of letters.
And you are muted.
Whatever you did before, do it again, Aubrey.
Yeah, we've lost her audio. Oh, boy.
Aubrey has lost her voice. Uh-oh. She knows what it is.
Yep. There's something she's doing down there. She's plugging something. Here's what we need to do is probably play her song here.
Yeah.
It's off and on again. Off and on again. Off and on again. If you try turning it off and on again, that normally does the trick.
That's not doing it so far, Aubrey.
Wait a minute, try it now. Well, let's do a weather roundup real quick.
She did the weather. She did the surrender cobra there. All of a sudden.
Yeah, we're doing this on October the 17th. Where we are in drought. This for our little market here is what, day 29 with no measurable rain, and we got bad problems with water issues and agriculture and droughts. The least favorite thing to deal with. Droughts are just horrible. It looks like the rain at the end of the week is coming, but I'm afraid it's not going to help that much, but at least it's going to cool down the heat. Kevin mentioned he was in the 90s today. We saw a couple of spots in Oklahoma and Kansas at 100. The latest triple-digit easily for these cities. But again, that heat's going to break as a cold front comes down the pike, and I don't think we'll have any severe weather. We have Invest 99 back on the board. Remember, that was the one that became Hermine?
Yeah.
We talked about Invest 99 for like, that was the most famous Invest of all time. Well, we've gone through 10, so we have Invest 99 back on the board. Again, that's over in the Atlantic, east of the Bahamas. That should stay off the East Coast in the short term. So that's the deal. Aubrey, try it again. Let's hear you say something. Oh, boy.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Throwing up her hands. Wow. We might have to do a double email segment next week. I am so sorry, Aubrey, but we can't hear a word you're saying. So let's morph into picks of the week. And again, I'm looking at the clock here because I'm most nights they lead with weather, and I'm leading tonight because of the drought, which is to be expected. But anyway, my pick was that New York Times article, and I think we can go back and revisit that. Brian, you dug up something interesting about the data talked about from the airplanes.
Panasonic issued a press release on January the 5th, 2016, and the headline is Panasonic Avionics and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announce agreement for high-resolution weather data. And it appears that TAMDAR data is getting into the National Weather Service and into all of our models. I looked up Cliff Mass's rant about this, and it was in 2013, and it just makes me wonder, that article in the New York Times kind of looks like they didn't check their data very well, and they're talking about something that may have been going on a couple of years ago, but it's not true now.
Maybe that Mexican billionaire is after the National Weather Service like he is Hillary Clinton.
I'm not going to get into
Aubrey,
politics.
try it one more time. I just sense Aubrey's mic is going to start working at any second now.
No.
No. Boy. All right. So anyway, the New York Times article is my pick. And again, there's some good points in there. We ought to get Cliff Mass back on the show. If nothing else, Bill, this guy has the best pipes next to Morgan. Yes. In fact, those two guys are in the same market. They're out there in
Washington
Seattle.
State, yeah. So yeah,
Boy,
let's just go to nightly, James. Let's just go to nightly now.
Yeah.
You know what's really scary is that I've now been doing this show 20% of my life.
Wow, that's creepy.
I'm not going there.
We obviously have no life, none of us.
Brian's been doing it 7% of his.
Okay.
He's been here as long as me.
So anyway, that's my pick of the week. So let's go back to our pal Alex. Alex, what's your pick of the week, man?
Well, let's see. I did have. It was one of the North Carolina flood pictures, and I had it open on the tab, and I accidentally closed it. So
it's okay. You can send Brian a link in the chat room there. You can drop it in the chat room if you want to.
I'd appreciate it. So I know exactly what it is.
I think it was from ABC News. No, it was this.
It's okay. You can do it later. Just send Brian a note in the chat room. We'll put the link up there. Brian, what's your pick of the week?
Well, this is going to hark back to my early days as a child. And this one is actually because of two people in my life. Greg Forbes, no, pardon me, not Greg Forbes, Greg Carbon. I got the Gregs mixed up. And Aubrey Urbanowitz. This is a beautifully done, I think it's drone video of Vermont foliage done this year. And since we've had drought conditions down here in the southeastern U.S., our colors, at least in central Alabama, are just not that good. So this was absolutely spectacular. So it's a YouTube link. I'll have it up there on our picks.
All right, awesome. Bill Murray, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, James, my pick of the week is going to be Alex Forbes' incredible NWA video that he did about Weather Ready Fest. So that's going to be my pick. And thanks to Brian for being sweet to me and pulling it out of the show notes and putting it in as my pick so that I could avoid the foghorn.
Absolutely.
Right. Next week, if you'll indulge me, James, next week is Teachers in Space. The week after that, I don't have a show. Do you want to do this on Halloween, or do you want to move it to Tuesday night?
Oh, I don't care. Our kids are grown. I mean, I'm out of the Halloween.
Right, so I will get Dr. Cliff Mass for the 31st for our spectacular Halloween special.
Man, I'd love to have Cliff back on the show. Now, Aubrey, you have to do sign language or something. I mean, your video is perfect.
Use your lower third, Aubrey.
Yeah, your video is perfect.
She's showing us she has a microphone. At least she has a microphone.
She's got the mic and everything.
I thought Snowball was like her pet kitten or something.
So before we go, I got 3 more questions. I'm going to grill Alex. He has that look of terror in his face.
Hang up, Alex. The internet's about to go out.
Run. You need to run while you can. So, Alex, where are you going to go to college?
Well, I have been accepted at Mississippi State, and then I have applications at University of Georgia, Florida State, and Oklahoma. And then I actually went out to University of Georgia 2 weeks ago to meet Dr. John Knox.
Good guy.
To talk with him.
Bidding war.
Yeah, and let's clear. The University of Georgia has a new undergraduate program in atmospheric science, right? I mean,
yes,
they've got
added the bachelor's degree in meteorology. You can get it starting this semester.
So where do you want to go to school?
That is a good question. I don't have one school picked out. I would say the reality is it's probably either going to be Mississippi State or Georgia. If I do go to Mississippi State, I am going to do the full meteorology degree, not the broadcast meteorology that doesn't get you the AMS seal. But yeah, probably either one of the two.
So what's your dream job? Where do you want to be in 25 years?
Dream job.
You want to take Glenn Burns' place?
I don't know. Brad Nitz might have that locked up by then.
Anytime soon, but I'm just saying at some point we're all going to go fishing and the next generation takes over.
I mean, I would like to be on TV somewhere. I think eventually one day have a job where, like I said earlier, I'm not doing just meteorology. I want to have fun with it. I don't know. That could be anything from being on Good Morning America to being somewhere at a local station where, you do weekly segments of local attractions in the market that are entertaining to viewers. So I want to be able to have fun with my job in 25 years, not be stuck at a place where I'm not happy and I'm in fear of losing my job every day.
Well, that's a guarantee. I mean, you're going to have that no matter what you do, pal. Welcome to the real world.
You've blown this guy's dreams tonight, James.
No, I'm trying to get him grounded so he won't be some knucklehead in something he hates here. I mean, look, you will be successful if you. I tell this to all the young people: if you really love weather with all your heart and soul, and that's your passion, and if you are willing to work harder than everybody else that comes through, because here's your problem, Alex, you're going to have 100 people at least competing for that one job that you want.
Oh, yeah.
What's going to set you apart? Do you have that kind of work ethic? And the rap on your generation, and I'm not saying it should be this way, but it's the rap, is that you're lazy, you're entitled, and you don't do anything. So can you overcome that?
I completely agree with that. I mean, I see it on a regular basis with the people who I go to high school with. At the beginning of the year, like when you're introducing yourself to your teachers, you're like, they ask you, like, what are you involved in? And I can list 6 different things, and everybody else is sitting around me, like, oh, I show up to a student council meeting once a year. So I see that, that stigma for my generation, but I think I'm already ahead of that. I'm not trying to like boast for myself, but I mean, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know.
And here's the other rap, on your generation, is that you can't survive a workplace because you're so easily offended by anything anybody says. You want to go run to a safe space. Can you handle the pressure in the environment in television? Because people will talk ugly about you. They will say really bad things about you. The people inside your building will say bad things about you, and you're going to deal with trolls, haters, and know-it-alls. Do you think you can handle that?
Yeah, and I actually heard some examples of that at the National Weather Association conference in Norfolk from the student meteorology panel that they had with broadcast meteorologists up there. And, some of it did catch me off guard. I wasn't aware of some of the things that are said and, the X-rated stuff. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't let it get to you, which I don't let it get to me, I think I'll be fine with that. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm always kind of like the go-to guy at my school for, is it going to snow? Is school going to be closed? And, if I say, man, we might get a half inch, somebody will say, we only got a quarter of an inch, and I'll hear about it for the rest of the week. So
now you'll deal with world-class haters when you get into television. The first email I got after I cut off a basketball game on Christmas Day said, you should have been aborted by a coat hanger. And it only and that's one of the nice ones. I can't say the ugly ones because they're all loaded with these, vulgar profanity and stuff. Yeah. But it will make you.
It was the Cavs, James. I mean, come on. There's the Thunder and the Cavs. You can't be.
Haters got nothing on real world haters. When you get in the real world, it gets ugly. But again, it's a developed skill, and there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong, but you have to be able to handle it. There's no safe place to run to. It's the world you live in. So, actually, this room is my safe place here, as a matter of fact. So. But good luck, Alex. And if we can do anything to help, let us know. We're not good for much, but we know people here. But looking at the old clock, who made Kevin mad? I'm trying to. Brian, did you make him mad?
I didn't say a word to him.
What did you do to Kevin? I mean, he just hung up on us.
He did.
WeatherBrains is typically done Monday nights at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. And we know that most of you listen, but if you dare to watch live, you can do that. Most people watch us at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. We are in what, Bill, our 12th, 11th year? What is
11th
this?
Still, but we're closing in on number 12.
Getting close to 12 years. So if you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. Our social media accounts are all up on the website as well. And we'll get Aubrey's mic fixed. We're going to ship her a new Mr. Microphone for next week. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Aubrey, I'm so sorry. Your camera looks so good. And there's just nothing.
And your microphone looks good, too.
The mic looks really nice. It's one of those nice blue mics. I mean, those are nice looking.
And, Alex, I have just one piece of advice for you.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, brother.
Just make sure David Bourne comes to your prom and announces the homecoming queen on the sideline like Jim Harbaugh. Tell him that's the deal breaker.
All right, we're out. We'll see you guys.